So good afternoon, sir. This is Mahesh from NRSC, so Hyderabad. Ramarao
Good
sir, take it.
afternoon, sir. Yes, sir. Ram is here. I am his student.
Yeah. So when can I start?
Sir, there are around 100 participants that are on an average present. So we wait for a few more minutes, 2, 3 more minutes, and then I think we can start.
Sure. No.
Thank you, sir. Good afternoon to all the dignitaries and the participants. I welcome you all to this post-lunch session on the fourth day of AICTE Atal-sponsored faculty development program on atmospheric remote sensing methods and advances. To share his insights and knowledge on ground-based methods on measuring the atmospheric greenhouse gases, we have with us Shri Manish from NRSC Hyderabad, introducing our dignitary to the audience. Sir has joined NRSC in 2011 after as a scientist C post with BTech in Physical Sciences from Indian Institute of Space Science and Technology, Trivandrum. Since then, he has been working in the areas of impact of atmospheric traces, gases, and their dynamic on climate change and air quality system using ground and satellite-based techniques. Sir has been participating in observational campaigns over ocean and land for measuring the atmospheric parameters. He has also participated in 35th Indian Scientific Expedition to Antarctica for measuring the greenhouse gases at Antarctica region covering the Southern Ocean in December 2015 to February 2016. He was also involved in Indian scientific expedition to Arctic for measuring the greenhouse gases at Arctic region in August 2018 to September 2018. Sir is currently holding responsible execution position in the ongoing R&D activities like atmospheric CO2 retrieval and monitoring of National Carbon Project under ISRO Geosphere Biosphere Program, Land Ocean Atmospheric Greenhouse Gas Interaction Experiment, Atmospheric Traces Gases Chemistry and Transport Modeling of ISRO GBP. Yes, sir. During 2015, ISRO had initiated polar research in which Sir has held the responsible post for Antarctic research for measurement of atmospheric black carbon, greenhouse gases, and solar radiation fluxes at Antarctica on long-term basis. Sir has also initiated a proposal on Arctic research as part of polar research during 2016. Sir, all the participants are eagerly looking forward to hear from you. I, on behalf of IAST, express our warm welcome to you on this web program. Sir, I invite you to deliver your session. Welcome, sir.
Thank you very much for the wonderful introduction. Thank you so much. And as you introduced myself, Mahesh from NRSC ISRO Hyderabad. So I'll be talking about the observations of greenhouse gases across the country. So these observations have started as part of the project called National Carbon Project, a very esteemed project of ISRO's project. And I am handling the atmospheric CO2 retrieval and monitoring component. There are different projects under this big umbrella. So I'll be taking into the insights of this project and what are its applications and what kind of R&D we are doing it on greenhouse gases and ISRO's contribution to the greenhouse gases measurements in the country and addressing the regional climate change in the GHG's greenhouse gases perspective. Can anyone please confirm, are you able to see the screen
Yes, sir,
presentation?
we are able to see the screen.
Yeah.
Please change the slide so that I can confirm if it's changing. It is not changing.
Now?
Now, yes, sir, now it's changing.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So the topic is ground-based methods of measuring atmospheric greenhouse gases, and what is its importance actually? Why do we need to have why do we need to measure these greenhouse gases and the extensive measurements and continuous measurements of these greenhouse gases for the country with instruments. So because when we have the satellite capability and potential, they have a potential to demonstrate the variability of these greenhouse gases. Majorly, the greenhouse gases are like CO2, methane, water vapor, nitrous oxide, ozone. So these are all the primary greenhouse gases which are contributing to the global warming and subsequently the climate change in terms of different factors like rising temperature, rising changing sea level. So there are many climate indicators which will be influenced by different parameters. So why do we need to measure these? Because satellite data gives us polar satellites. They will give us a information about the atmospheric composition for a particular date, what one time. But whereas the in situ geostationary satellites, they will give continuous at hourly or half an hourly interval. So, but right now over the India, we have for continuous geostationary based ozone measurements. That is the INSAT 3D satellite will give us the ozone profiles continuously at hourly interval, half an hour interval. But the total atmospheric composition that is missing from the country to monitor from the satellite-based sensors from ISRO side. But whereas the other global partners like NASA and European Space Agency, so they have sensors, but they are polar satellites which will give one scene in a day at particular time, like afternoon 1:30 or 2 o'clock. But the ground-based information is more reliable and accurate information it provides about the atmospheric composition and the realistic, and it is more reliable data to know the information about chemical composition. And even the sources, what we are speaking about, greenhouse gases, majorly carbon dioxide, methane, and nitrous oxide, that is N2O, carbon monoxide, ozone. These are all the emissions from, they have a natural as well as anthropogenic emissions in the atmosphere. So to separate that and to partitioning that, whether it is from natural phenomena or anthropogenic phenomena, to know that the continuous ground-based measurements will be more useful and decisive for understanding these processes. So and whereas, as I said, these in situ measurements are continuous. So I will have a high temporal coverage compared to satellite data. And at the same time, this data will be very useful and decisive to calibrate the satellite-based outputs which we are generating. Because satellite retrievals depends on the algorithms, whereas the in situ observations are instant and the instant observations which will give more accurate compared to satellite. So these continuous observations of ground-based methods will be useful to calibrate this.
Changing.
Yeah. So and even to remove the uncertainties, we need to have the ground data. So that is how this the measurements of greenhouse gases on ground-based methods are very useful. So as I hope everyone must be knowing what is climate change and what is the difference between weather and climate change. So this climate change is the long-term average of weather in a given place. So the climate change is not same as in India and US or China. They differ from different they differ from place to place, depending on their local, the regional source and things and the processes which are present in their respective countries. So the weather is an instant event. So like changing temperature from morning to afternoon is a weather pattern. It depends on the weather conditions. So the major difference is whether it is instant and short-term effect, whether a climate is an average over the 30 years period. So the effects will be slow, but it will have a significant damage to the Earth planet. So these are all indicators. If you see the left side, global greenhouse gas emissions, which comes from mainly industries and factories. So due to which the concentration, atmospheric composition will be increasing, like CO2, methane. The concentration will be increasing. So and we also hearing continuously about the occurrence of drought conditions in different places, and tropical cyclone activity, like the frequency and occurrence and duration. It's also is modulated by the changing of climate change, rising sea level, ocean acidification. So now how much we are putting into the atmosphere, these greenhouse gases will result in the ocean acidification, which will have a negative impact on the Earth's climate system. So this also should be taken care. So these are all climate indicators. If one should understand whether the climate change is really happening or not. So by knowing these parameters, basic indicators, we'll be able to understand this whether the climate change is really happening or not. Like increasing greenhouse gases, as I said, like temperature variations, precipitation variation, and ocean heat content, like sea surface temperature of the ocean also is increasing, decreasing. This also depends on the composition that we put into the atmosphere, and ocean acidification, as I explained. Arctic sea ice. Now, if you see the Antarctic sea ice and Arctic sea ice, so they are at the phase of melting. But luckily, with my experience in Antarctica in 2015, the studies have demonstrated clearly. See, Antarctica sea ice is not melting at that fast, and these greenhouse gases have does not showing much impact on Antarctica region so far. But whereas Arctic is facing this problem, and this melting is happening so faster compared to Antarctic region. Antarctica is still its balanced condition, and which does not affected by any global warming in this region. Heat wave, we know that heat waves related deaths we used to hear in the news or media. This basically the change in weather patterns. So the sudden changes in temperature, and with meteorology, like the wind speed, wind direction, these things related. So when it comes to the measurements of atmospheric CO2, they understood the concern of these emissions, and importance of measuring these greenhouse gases, understanding its variability across different locations across the globe. So people have organizations have started measuring the continuous greenhouse gases. If you see the global, so according to 2015, I'm showing 2015 update. So these are all ground-based measurements spread over the globe. And India, we are showing 1 point, but now the greenhouse gases are over our country expanded to different locations. So if this is a popular curve, which will tell the emissions of greenhouse gases, how much we are contributing to, how much we are putting into the atmosphere. So this is one alarming curve which is increasing. See, 1980 to 2020, the CO2 concentrations are increasing in the atmosphere, which one we should understand, and we should be taking care of its emissions. So to understand the climate change as a comprehensive and comprehensive way to address the climate system over the globe or in a regional level, one, we need to have the measurements of ground-based and airborne data, which should be complemented by the remote sensing data. So when we have the integrated approach, like ground-based, airborne will give the vertical information with accurate information, and whereas the remote sensing will give the larger coverage. We get a larger coverage of these sensors with different spatial resolution. So by having this adequate network from the airborne data, I'm sorry. So having this adequate network and high vertical resolution from the airborne data, aircraft-based information, and the spatial coverage from the satellite-based sensor will be going to the as part of the data assimilation. They will be going to the climate models to the finer resolution to coarser resolution, depending on the effect of the climate change over a given region. So we'll provide us the evidence for the changes happening in the climate system on the Earth, and we'll able to track the spatial patterns of this climate indicator. As I said, increase of greenhouse gases, change in temperature, change in precipitation. So we'll be able to understand clearly about these spatial patterns of these climate indicators. And of course, these our results from the research and development activities will help the policy decision makers to put the conditions like carbon trading. As a carbon trading is a popular term which has been put on the industries. So based on this carbon trade, how much they have to release to the emissions, the cap will be decided by these policy documents of the government. So due to which the amount of the heat trapping gases, these are all heat trapping gases, the major greenhouse gases can be controlled when we have the proper policy document. So it's a global warming is a global issue. It's not any regional issue. So it has been decided in COP 2020, COP 21 agreement, and government of India has also signed to implement strictly from 2025 onwards to reduce the amount of heat trapping emissions in the atmosphere. And if you see the from the space, like remote sensing observations of this CO2, carbon dioxide from 2003 to 2016, the concentrations have reached from around 365 to 370 ppm to now it has come to 400 ppm. And if you see the curve from 2002 to 2016, the concentration are steadily increasing, which one we should take care of these emissions and to understand the processes for releasing these emissions in the atmosphere, and subsequently to mitigate and adopt these changes in the atmosphere. So ISRO has started, as I said, ISRO has started this National Carbon Project under the leadership of Dr. V.K. Dadwal, the director IIST. So this project has started with, across the country with the different spheres covering from atmosphere, ocean, soil, agriculture. So in every aspect, we try to understand the total country's carbon budget and different sub projects. So under this, I'm taking care of this atmospheric CO2 retrieval and monitoring under this National Carbon Project of ISRO Geosphere Biosphere program. So we have established a dedicated CO2 network across the country from south to north. If you see, we have a sensor at IIST Pondmudi and regional IRS Dehradun. So from south to north, we have a very good network to measure and to see the diurnal pattern, like morning to evening, morning to night, across the round the clock, how these CO2 concentrations are varying in the atmosphere. So this will helpful to understand these dynamics of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, and we have also augmented our observations, our understanding further by installing a prestigious instrument and sophisticated instrument that's called Fourier transform infrared spectrometer to retrieve the columnar greenhouse gases from the atmosphere using solar spectra. And also we have expanded our observations to study the source apportionment. Like we know how much CO2 we are putting into the atmosphere, but we don't know what are the contributors, individual contributors. How much due to anthropogenic, how much due to natural emissions, like soil respiration is a natural process. So how much CO2 is released to the atmosphere by soil respiration, and how much CO2 is sinking due to the photosynthesis activity, and how much CO2 is emitting due to the industrial activity or anthropogenic emissions. So to understand that, we have very recently augmented our observations and understanding in these CO2 isotopic research activities we started in 2018. So with these continuous observations, will provide a better understanding and will helpful when we do the model simulations with the ground data. So once one certain period, after one certain period, we can able to use only model simulated data for assessing the carbon budget over the countries. So then we have another project, another program called a National Information System for Climate and Environmental Studies, that's NICES. Under this also we have we are establishing different sensors across the country and measuring the greenhouse gases, and in complementing the National Carbon Project of ISRO GBP. So these are the list of instruments so far we have. In at NRSC, ISRO has established across the country, and this is the one of the best network and a comprehensive network for addressing the regional greenhouse gases over the country. And we have a good amount of network to measure the greenhouse gases and to study the implications of these greenhouse gases on the regional atmosphere. So we have started in 2009. Our observations have started with a small sensor called GMP343, which will provide the accurate information about diurnal and seasonal. So every season, like every month, the concentration of the CO2 is not same, because the major emissions come from the Earth surface characteristics as well as the anthropogenic emissions. So Earth surface characteristics will be changing over the period of over the entire year. Summer it will be a dry season, and monsoon during June, July, August it's a monsoon season. It will have a vegetation effect, and the pre-monsoon season will have the long-range influence, transport influence, and where this photosynthesis activity is also less. So these are all to understand the seasonal changes. So and diurnal changes or in a day, how this concentration of atmosphere CO2 is changing. So then we have expanded our observations to high-end instruments to understand its sourcing characteristics. Greenhouse gas analyzer, it was installed in 2013 at our campus. And the Fourier transfer infrared spectrometer, it's a first of its kind in India to measure columnar. The satellite gives columnar concentration. As of now, there is no sensor from the space-based which will give surface measurements, and ground-based sensor which is not available to measure columnar concentration. And we have that instrument at our NRSC Hyderabad Shadnagar campus, which will give the total columnar concentration of CO2, CH4, N2O, carbon monoxide, ozone, hydrogen fluoride, hydrogen chloride, water vapor. So it from the total mid infrared region, it covers from 0.9 micron to 16 micrometer to give the different species depending on their absorption spectra. And we have a compact and dedicated trace gas analyzer system to understand the ozone chemistry at our suburban region, that is the Shadnagar location, which is far away from the polluted urban city Hyderabad. So which will measure ozone, NOx, SO2, carbon monoxide, and we have ultra portable greenhouse gas analyzer, which will be used in the campaign-based studies. So whereas this greenhouse gas analyzer, we cannot. It is not easy to move. It is not easy to move from place to place. It is not compact in nature. So we have procured ultra portable greenhouse gas analyzer to measure this CO2, CH4, water vapor. As I said, to do the source apportionment, we have these analyzers called CO2 isotopic analyzer and N2O isotopic analyzer. So what kind of sources are present in this location? These two sensors currently at our Shadnagar campus, and to understand the nitrification, denitrification process, which will emit N2O to the atmosphere, which is also one of the powerful greenhouse gases in the atmosphere. So to understand that, we have an N2O isotopic, very sophisticated instrument, which was also installed in 2018. We have started ozone sonde balloon experiments in 2019 with the help of our collaborating institutes like IAST Trivandrum and RC Regional Center Nagpur, Regional Center Jodhpur, and one location, the fourth location from NRSC Shadnagar. So we have a from different four locations. We'll be launching at a time these ozone balloons to study the vertical information of meteorological parameters like air temperature, pressure, humidity, and ozone concentration. So the ozone concentration, majority of the ozone concentration which presents in the stratosphere, which is a good for the Earth's atmosphere. And portable FTR, which has come very recently. Portable FTR, which has come very recently to measure the greenhouse gases, columnar greenhouse gases across the country. And this is our atmospheric science lab, which is in Shadnagar, our NRSC Shadnagar campus, which have a sort of these sort of experience instruments along with the other aerosols related instruments and other like even we have agriculture sensors. So it is a it is an atmospheric science lab dedicated for this measurements. So these are the studies we have carried out from these instruments. So I'll be taking you to each sensor, how what is its application when it comes to the measurements of these greenhouse gases, especially atmospheric CO2, and what are the inferences we have drawn from these data. So this is a GMP 340 sensor made by the Vaisala company. Basically the working principle is Beers-Lambert's principle. So if you see there are two detectors. One is the absorbing band, one is the non-absorbing band. So the amount of input signal, the energy comes pass through the optical cell. So when it goes to the absorbing band and non-absorbing band, there will be a modulation in the transmittance, incoming energy. So the difference of the ratio of those two, incident energy to the reference energy, will give the transmittance, and which will be proportional to the concentration of the CO2 in the path length, in the given path length. So this sensor has a variety of applications, varied applications covering from soil respiration. We can also measure soil respired CO2 concentration as well as ambient CO2 concentration. So if you see, these are the I just wanted to show you how CO2 curve varies in a day. So if you see, the morning CO2 concentration is in the peak during morning hours, and when it comes to the afternoon, it's a dip in the CO2 concentration, because this is during daytime and the active sun period. So this will photosynthesis rate is more active and it's prominent. So due to that, the uptake of CO2 by the plants will happen during this time. And the night time they start increasing again. If you see around 6:30 to 7 o'clock, CO2 concentration rising again because of the soil respiration, as well as on this dynamics of CO2 in a day. It's not only a natural process; it will also have the anthropogenic emissions, which comes from the industrial emissions. So here with this sensor, we'll not be able to understand whether it is anthropogenic emission or natural process. So, and even we compared, as I said, at each location, the concentrations are not similar, because the majority of the concentrations are driven by the surface characteristics of the given location. So the land cover will have a great impact on the emissions of greenhouse gases in the atmosphere. So if you see that Dehradun is being a wet season, having a huge rainfall compared to our Gadanki station, which is a dry station in nature. So there is a difference between during the same period, there is a difference between the CO2 concentration in the atmosphere. So which will tell the land cover will have a significant impact on atmospheric changes. And if you see, northeast is a relatively highly vegetated area, so you will see less concentrations in the northeast region compared to the rest of the Indian mainland. And even coastal station, if you see Sriharkota, where our rocket launching station is there. So this coastal station is greatly affected by the land sea breeze effect. The CO2 concentration at this location were mainly driven by the land sea breeze effect, which had the meteorology had a great role on controlling this atmospheric CO2 at this location. So coastal station and the wet locations and dry locations will have different characteristics of CO2 and the abundance of CO2 in the atmosphere. And it is known as a homogeneous CO2 concentration, but it will have different effects. It will have a different concentration at different locations. This is, as I said, this is one of the high-end instrument with high accurate and meeting the criteria of World Meteorological Organization. These measurements are very precise, and we have these measurements continuously from 2013 to till date at our study location called NRSC Shadnagar. So and this particular sensor. So once we have at least 5 years data, we can tell that a particular location, once we remove these anthropogenic and natural emissions. So what is the abundance of CO2 or methane at this particular location? We call that as a background concentration. Background concentration means when we remove these effects, external effects, so-called anthropogenic industrial activities and natural phenomena. So what is the abundance of CO2 methane at this location? And also the role of meteorology, which brings the air mass from different locations via transport, upwind transport. So this also we remove. Now we removed these effects, and we estimated concentration of CO2 methane at this location. So this value we are targeting to putting into the IPCC report. So we are still working on it. So this concentration, if you see seasonally, the CO2 and CH4 red curve shows the CO2 concentration, and the black curve shows the methane concentration during the winter season, December, January, February. So if you see the concentration against boundary layer height, the boundary layer height is the says atmospheric dynamics. So the height at which during its peak height, so the concentrations are low because the dilution of the atmospheric air mass. So the due to its mixing, the concentrations are observed low during the peak boundary layer height. So whereas during all the season, this phenomena is same for like a winter to pre-monsoon, that is a summer season, and monsoon and post-monsoon. So the during all the seasons, it is inversely related with the boundary layer height. These concentrations are inversely related with the boundary layer height. And as I said, the concentrations of these greenhouse gas in the atmosphere will also influence by the meteorology. The meteorology is like air temperature and winds. So the winds are the media to bring the external air mass to the study location where we are measuring these parameters. So the strong winds are having a low concentration because the scavenging effect, they just wash out the present atmospheric composition at the given location. So it has a negative correlation. When high winds are there, we observe low concentration. When low winds, that is calm winds, so the persistence of presence of this greenhouse gas is more. So we see that is why we observe more concentration when low winds are there in the given location. So these studies also published in very well reputed journal called Atmospheric Chemistry and Physics. So this again methane. Methane is also negatively correlated with the winds. So all the atmospheric composition will have a negative correlation with the winds. When high winds are there, they observe to be low concentration because it's just a washout. And because of high end, the beauty of the high end instruments and highly accurate instruments will be able to capture the episodic events which will last for only few hours to few days. So this sensor, we during this 2014 period, we studied biomass burning, which happened at northern region, northwest region. So that's the emissions due to biomass burning in this Punjab and Haryana, these locations. So have an enhancement of CO2 and methane concentration at our study location called Shadnagar. So it shows that long range transport has a dominant role during a particular season. This is during summer season has biomass burning in these locations. It has a strong influence on the enhancement of greenhouse gases. If you see these two four black dots, they are increased CO2 concentration for this period, and these dates are exactly matching with the biomass burning events in these locations like Punjab or Haryana. We observed a significant enhancement in the CO2 concentration. And as I said, so this atmospheric CO2 concentration is directly related with the vegetation. You see, when more vegetation, it is attributed with the vegetation change. So less CO2 concentration when high vegetation, because of the photosynthesis active, the rate of photosynthesis will be more prominent even when there are a significant atmospheric temperature is present. So this has a negative relation. When high normalized difference vegetation index is there, we observe low CO2 concentration. But whereas methane, the major source for methane is vegetation. So in the country, there are debates are going on, but we are investigating the methane emissions, how much is coming from the vegetation and how much the sink is happening. So main source for methane in the atmosphere is agriculture fields, paddy fields, and landfills and waste management. So these things, we need to understand whether the major source coming from the which emitter. So the major sink which will be absorbed is a OH radical, which is a chemical process due to which this methane concentration in the atmosphere is removed. So this also we addressed how this source and sink mechanism in our paper, this ACP journal, which has the influence of long range influence of meteorology and greenhouse gases. This paper you can find in the net. And this from the same sensor, we have built so far more than 9 years data from this sensor. 7 years, more than 7 years data we have built so far. So minimum 5 years data is required to estimate the background level concentration, where we remove the external effects as we were talking about, anthropogenic emissions and the winds which we bring from the different locations and the local sources. So after removing that, what is the representative value for the given location? So now we have applied our all statistical analysis to bring out the baseline concentration for our study location, NRSC Shadnagar campus. So it represents a suburban region, and that concentration is around it's close to 400 ppm, and which is less compared to the global mean. Today the global mean has touched 400 ppm concentration. So this paper is under this work is under preparation for the submission to the journal. So this, and after removing all these effects, so we will be able to capture the seasonal cycle of carbon dioxide, and from the seasonal cycle we can easily tell that when is the source, the CO2 is enhancing during which season and CO2 is less during which season. So we will be able to see that during March, April, May, the CO2 concentration is more, and the June, July, August, this period is the sink for CO2, and methane is also seen the June, July, August to be the source for that, and whereas the March, April, May to be a sink for methane concentration in the atmosphere, because the vegetation is active during monsoon season, that is June to September. So that is the active season, and it goes up to October also. And this right now the models are lacking to capture the seasonal and annual cycles of a given species, for example CO2 or methane. So once we have the proper ground data, continuous ground data and quality data, so the models are able to capture long-term and seasonal changes. So this support we have taken from the Gemstech Japan. So the model is clearly capturing the CO2 cycle over our location, Shadnagar, and it is exactly matching with our the ground-based observations. So this proven to be more potential to use and explore this model for understanding the CO2 annual and seasonal cycles once it is thoroughly validated at different locations. Now it is validated, and this model is widely used by the Gemstech people in Japan and other people. So it is very well capturing the annual and seasonal cycles compared to the when we compare with the ground-based observations, they are very well matching. So the seasonal. So further, we what we how in the beginning we discussed to understand the source apportionment, like the contribution of individual source emitters in the atmosphere. So we augmented our observations to the isotopic observations. Isotopic is then atomic number will be atomic number will be same, and the atomic mass will be different. Like CO2 will have a 12 CO2 and 13 CO2. So the carbon atomic number is 6. It is same for two composition, but the only atomic mass will be changing. So we have this instrument, and the isotopic ratios are derived, estimated, like the source to the, we have a source, a sample which comes from the ambient in the atmosphere, and we have a reference. So it is a reference material, that is Vienna P dilamide. It's a reference material for this isotopic composition, CO2 isotopic, and which will give 13C and 18O. In CO2, there is a carbon and oxygen atom, and two oxygen molecule and CO carbon atom. So the oxygen also will have a 17O and 13C. So these two parameters we are measuring. So the ratio, the dynamics of 13C carbon and 17O oxygen changes in these two parameters will be able to tell what kind of processes are happening, and the emission of CO2 in the atmosphere is in which form, whether it is a 12C or 13C. So majority of the abundance in the CO2 atmosphere is 12C carbon, which is almost 99% in the atmosphere, whereas the 1% which is very minute of radioactive, that is 14 carbon, and the rest of the composition is 13C carbon. So to understand that source and sink dynamics, we have we recently studied this to understand whether there is a natural emissions and anthropogenic emissions, to identify that. So we have done the study from during daytime and nighttime separately. So our study shows from this period, November 2018 to October 2019 period, 1 year. shows during all season, the 13C values are around minus 32.8. So this number indicates daytime source of atmosphere is related to the anthropogenic emissions like combustion, natural gas combustion and gasoline. So this number, maybe this number I'll just tell you. So this number is generated, is measured continuously at in a closed environment where these only these processes are allowed, like gasoline and natural gas combustion. Then they measure 13C CO2 and see that observations. So then it is observed to be that if a location is getting around minus 32.8, that means so the emissions are coming from these processes like natural gas combustion and gasoline. Whereas the nighttime, it clearly dominates the vegetation ecosystem respiration. So the during nighttime the value is around the 13C composition around minus 23.792 to 28.38, which indicates it is also studied under this same environment where the highly vegetated densely vegetated areas, they do these observations and estimate the numbers. So this number at our location shows so during nighttime the dominance of ecosystem. So our study shows that from the isotopic composition, during daytime the anthropogenic emission is more dominant, and the nighttime the ecosystem respiration is dominating to the atmospheric CO2 at our location. This method is called modified killing method, introduced by Miller and Tans in 2003, from which one can estimate what is the source and sink processes using this isotopic fractionation. This work also we submitted to the JGR atmosphere very recently. An N2O isotopic study. So we are measuring continuously from 2018 to study the source apportionment again for N2O using its isotopic signature. So this study, it's very important to understand, because as I said, N2O is also one of the powerful greenhouse gases in the total greenhouse gas family. So this N2O is also 300 times more important compared to CO2 and methane, which but due to its low abundance, so majorly we are focusing on carbon dioxide and methane. So this is very important because to identify the source and sink pathways, this is due to only nitrification in the soil and denitrification process in the soil, which will only emit the N2O to the atmosphere, and it will also have a significant impact in the stratospheric ozone. The N2O transport of N2O due to its strong advection, strong convection. So these processes will seriously impact the damage of ozone layer in the atmosphere. And this is also one of the positive radiative forcing effect as like CO2 and methane. So we need to understand this source and sink pathways of N2O concentration in the atmosphere. So this study is underway. We have we are investigating, we are analyzing the data, and we are trying to bring out the insightful information very soon. This is a ground-based columnar greenhouse gas in India using FTIR spectrometer. It's a first of its kind in the country to where we are measuring the columnar, first ground-based remote sensing, I can say, to measure the columnar concentration of column means the total column from surface to the top of the atmosphere, which measures the entire column, the composition of the species from the solar absorption spectra. So this particular spectrometer works on Michelson interferometer principle, which everyone must have studied on undergraduation and +2 level. So this Michelson interferometer principle, like, so sun is the active source for this instrument, like the cam tracker is sitting here. This tracks the sun signal and sends to this is a input mirror that is made up of potassium bromide material, so which is inclined at 45 degree, so that the incoming energy can fall into the beam splitter, which is also inclined at 30 degree. So the beam splitter splits the signal into two. One will be directed towards a moving mirror, the other one will be going to the fixed mirror. So when they superimpose back at the beam splitter, they form an interferogram. Interferogram is nothing but it will have a time domain, which will have the information about the electromagnetic spectrum. So to understand more easily, the interferogram is converted into spectra. Interferogram is converted into spectra by applying fast Fourier transform. So then once we get the Fourier transform spectrum, solar spectrum, so we apply algorithm line by line radiative transfer algorithm. So it's a very complex algorithm, but I'm trying to show it's a very simplified manner. So this spectrometer measures from 0.9 micron to 16 micrometer total mid-infrared region, covering from NIR region to mid-IR region. So all the species which falls majorly the greenhouse gases are in the infrared region. So our target is also to understand the greenhouse gases emissions over this location, which will also helpful for the validating the satellite data. So the objective is also to validate the satellite data and improve the retrieval algorithm for the Indian region. So we have this algorithm. It's called a line by line radiative transfer, which reads every line of the spectrum. So high resolution, high spectral resolution. We get here a high resolution spectrum. So with this, there are inputs called pressure, temperature, and volume mixing ratio of the species. So that also we do air mass factor, because as sun moves from one direction to the other direction throughout the day. So the atmospheric path should be corrected, so that we correct to get the columnar concentration of greenhouse gases. So it's not here CXG indicates columnar gas. So gas can be like CO2, methane, water vapor, N2O, and carbon monoxide, ozone. So once we simplify this, we get the all dry mole fraction in terms of concentration, parts per million volume or parts per billion volume. So this is a simplified algorithm, which is very complicated. So I'm not going to much depth of this algorithm. So this is how spectrum looks. One can see this is a spectrum which covers from 16 micron to 0.9 micrometer. This is the x-axis is wave number. If you do just 10,000 by this wave number, you will get in terms of microwave micrometers. So it's a wavelength. Basically, you will get in wavelength. So 0.9 micrometer to 16 micrometer. This is a transmittance signal which comes from the sun, because sun is the active source. We operate only during clear sky days, because under cloudy the measurements are not helpful to estimate these concentrations. So we use very different detectors for the measurements. If we use the MCT detector, that is mercury, cadmium, tellurium detector, we get one kind of spectrum. So if we use the INSB detector, we get other kind of spectrum. So as a combination, we can switch over depending on our application. So we get this kind of spectrum. So after that, we apply this line by line radiative transfer algorithm to retrieve concentration. So this is how retrieved concentrations of CO2, CH4, CO, and N2O from solar spectra measured by FTR spectrometer at NRSC Shadnagar. This is a CO2 concentration during 2016 period, from January to May period. Roughly 5 months data. It shows that the concentrations in January around 402 ppm to, and May it goes up to 416, 412 ppm. And same as like methane is also around 1.85 ppm. And which is compared to other countries where these emissions are more, the methane concentration is still safer side, but we need to understand the sources of its methane concentrations individually, individual contribution of methane. Though the majority, because the emissions of methane is still uncertain from the different emitters. So carbon monoxide is purely from the combustion process and biomass burning and vehicular pollution and industries. So this is purely a pollutant, and is also, it's not a primary greenhouse gas, it's a secondary greenhouse gas, which is also having a positive effect, but not compared to the not that level of CO2 and methane and N2O. N2O is also around 320, 325 ppb. So these are all species we retrieved, and we have more species we retrieved, but these are the major greenhouse gases to show we are studying at our as part of our research to understand the greenhouse gases dynamics. These are daily variability of CO2, methane, carbon monoxide, N2O concentrations during this period, as I said, January to May 2016 year. We also compared satellite measured CO2 concentration and satellite measured carbon monoxide. That's a MOPIT sensor will give the carbon monoxide, whereas orbiting carbon observatory by NASA, they are giving columnar CO2. So now when we compared with our FTIR CO2, they are very well matching. But lag is 1 to 2 ppm difference between the FTIR and ground-based FTIR and space-based FTIR. So 1 to 2 ppm difference is there, but the correlation is very strong between these two observations are in good agreement with. If we see the patterns are same, almost following the same pattern from January to May, and the correlation between these two observations is around 0.8 with the number of observations. 14 co-located observations were only 14 during the same period. And carbon monoxide is very well matching with the FTIR data. The satellite carbon monoxide and FTIR data is very well matching with this. And this is so with this present retrieval mode and with our algorithm, we could able to achieve the precision of 0.17% for XCO2, 0.3% to 0.7% for methane, 6.2, 6 to 8% for CO, and 0.4 to 0.7 for N2O, which is meeting the global accuracy requirement, and also we are meeting the global World Meteorological Organization requirement. So now we have this. This is a giant instrument. We can't be used for the to measure this columnar greenhouse gas at different location. Hence, we plan to procure portable FTIR so that we can go to different locations and measure these greenhouse gases, at least the primary greenhouse gases. So thus we recently obtained our portable FTIR spectrometer also. So that also I'll be showing. And what we did, we got the opportunity, and we actually participated in 2017 period. There was a campaign, airborne campaign, in which our NRS aircraft was flown with the payload called Everest NG, which will give the high spectral resolution images. So from this, there was a scene over Shadnagar region. So with our band ratio, what we did, we again we developed an algorithm and we to return the methane concentration over this region. And this the blue and yellow curve, yellow map shows the methane concentration. The yellow spots are high concentration regions, and the blue are low concentration regions. So wherever the blue yellow spots on this map indicating the high concentration and over the agriculture region. So these values are exactly correlating with the bottom XCH4, that is columnar methane retired from FTIR spectrometer from surface to 5 kilometer, around 5 kilometer, because our flight was flown at the height of 5 kilometer. So with that, so FTIR is also every SNG is a potential to demonstrate the retrieval of methane concentration from the hyperspectral imaging sensors, and also we could validate the estimated methane concentration from the hyperspectral images to the ground-based FTIR system. So these are all work done with the FTIR spectrometer from 2016 to 2019. So every like first we started a retrieval of CO2, then we expanded our retrieval from CO2 to N2O, and 2017 where the poor version of the algorithm. With that, we also published that. Then we improved our retrieval algorithm in 2019 and published all the species of these retrievals of columnar CO2, CH4, CO8. Now I'm working on inverse retrieval algorithm. So where I can retrieve the vertical information of these gases equally. So once we know the vertical information about these gases, we'll be able to over the long term period, we'll be able to understand the relative effects and the heating of the atmosphere, how much atmosphere is getting heated up because of these greenhouse gases present at each level. Because the major emission of greenhouse gas in the atmosphere comes from the surface, and they transport to the upper atmosphere due to this upwind and other atmospheric process like such as advection and convection. So to understand that, we need to estimate the vertical information. This vertical information is also very helpful to when we simulate using models. So this work is under progress. We will be doing it. We will be showcasing very in the near future. So this right now we have this FTIR, and we augmented very recently portable FTIR. So because this FTIR we can't move anywhere, but one location observations. As I said, the concentration of these greenhouse gases changing with space and time. So to understand that columnar greenhouse gas at each at least as a function of different land use, land cover. So we are we procured portable FTIR spectrometer system, which can go to different fields, and we can retrieve the same concentration of CO2, CH4, and CO. So with this spectrometer, right now, this is a spectrometer, yeah, portable FTIR spectrometer. It's a miniature of the what I have shown, the FTIR 125M. So with this, we can retrieve the concentration of CO2, CH4, and carbon monoxide, but we don't get all the species what we used to get from the big FTIR spectrometer 125M. So here we get major greenhouse gases like CO2, CH4, and carbon monoxide, which also. So what actually why we are measuring here carbon monoxide by adding another detector is when we take the ratio of the emission of CO2 to CH4, and when we take the ratio of the CO2 to CO and CH4 to CO, the ratio will tell us how much is due to anthropogenic. So to understand that, so the CO measurements of carbon monoxide will help besides its pollution effect. So in the greenhouse gases, the ambient greenhouse gases, how much is coming from the industrial activities and all, we can understand from the measurements of CO when we do that ratio of CO2 to CO, CH4 to CO. So this right now the spectrometer measures from 0.76 micron to 2.5 micrometer, where these absorption peaks are present for CO2, CH4, CO, and O2 and water vapor also we get from this spectrum. And to understand like mainlands on the globe, majority of the emissions come from the mainland, whereas this so to understand the gradient between mainland emissions and the interior exterior of the globe, to understand that, so we have expanded our observations even to polar region to see the difference of concentrations in the pristine environment and compared to the polluted regions. So we have 2015, we expanded our observations to polar region. We started with Antarctic. So I had participated in the Antarctic expedition, 35th Indian Scientific Expedition to Antarctic. So I have measured CO2 and black carbon measurements also. Black carbon measurements will tell us the emissions of the anthropogenic emissions, if any, present in that area. So CO2 concentrations are measured, and even in 2018, I had participated in Arctic scientific expedition with the high-end sensor. So when I participated in 2015 Antarctic, I could only measure CO2 concentration, but whereas in 2018 Arctic expedition, I could measure CO2, methane, and water vapor concentrations continuously at different locations. Because so this Antarctic region, our observational study, though it was limited for a few months, I stayed only for 3 months. So during that summer period, it was a summer when I was there in Antarctic. So during this period, so the observations have evidenced the precipitation was the dominant factor in controlling the CO2 concentration in the polar region, especially our measurement site near to coastal, near to sea. So that shows that the CO2 concentration was majorly influenced by the meteorological condition at that location. As such, there are no evidence for the anthropogenic emissions which have traveled from the mainland to this Antarctica region. So this study clearly concluded that so Antarctica is not still affected by the global warming which is happening across the globe, across the globe. So that is not affected the Antarctica region till 2015, and the fact is same till today. So it is not affected much. Antarctica is maintaining its pristine environment. So precipitation was the major dominating factor for reducing the CO2 concentration, because the CO2 concentration will be diluted when the moisture is more in the atmosphere. So that is why we see the the vertical blue bar indicates the precipitation amount, that is a snowfall. Here we say in Antarctic region snowfall. So it shows around 15 mm. During that time, the atmospheric concentration was around 385 ppm. So when no precipitation, the concentration again rose up. So even winds also will have a significant effect in reducing the concentrations due to scavenging effect, as I said. So Antarctica is not evidenced anything so far due to the effect of global warming on this region. And so to understand this, even from next what we did, we started our observations from mainland to the Antarctic region. Like so, it starts from South Africa, Cape Town. We started our measurements. Then slowly we reached our. We have two Indian stations. One is Bharti and the other one is Maitri. So this entire entire expedition period was the concentrations were below 400 ppm, and the data still it has to be. This data is also reported in the journal called Polar Research. So it got published. This work has been already published. So this work we are still doing to understand the carbon emissions over the Southern Ocean. So this work we still studying, and and next we participated in Southern Ocean expedition during 2017 to 2018. The ship was started from Mauritius to Bharti, then Maitri. So to total cruise, the concentrations during 2007, during these two periods, we observed a difference in the concentration of CO2 and methane when we started from Cape Town, when we started from Mauritius. So to understand the sourcing dynamics over this region, especially Southern Ocean, we need to understand in depth what are the processes controlling these emissions. Of course, there will be external emissions via transport that also we need to remove from our observational analysis. In 2018, scientific expedition to Arctic, so where the majority of the carbon study shows, many studies are reporting that the majority of the carbon stored in the Arctic soils. So it's almost in terms of methane or in terms of CO2 under the permafrost, which is a permanently frozen soil, ice under the soil. So this has it's a big reservoir for the atmospheric carbon. So we try to measure at the different locations of the soils to what is the emission of the CO2 and methane over different locations. Even we did field campaign with our zero emission battery vehicle. Total area we mapped, and we try to see that emission of CO2, CH4 concentration in the atmosphere. And we also measured the concentration of CO2 in the soils, and we try to compare what is the concentration of CO2 in the atmosphere and what is the concentration of CO2 in the soil. And we also measured our CO2 concentrations over this Arctic Ocean also. So this study also still we are reporting. We have not yet reported solid results. Is yet to be published. So the different soils, as I said, so at different locations we measured both ambient and soil methane and CO2, ambient CO2 and soil CO2. At different locations, the concentration of CO2 and methane were varying between atmosphere and soil. So the preliminary our preliminary observations indicate that shows that some soils are probably, or at some particular time, it is acting as an absorption for the CO2 or methane, and some particular time and it is acting as an emission. So this the CO2 or CH4 emission or absorption in the permafrost soils depends upon the availability of moisture and the microbial activity that happen in the soil. This is also a continuation of the previous work. We need to report it. Still, we are analyzing. We are seeing the data. And as I said, we are continuously measuring this trace gas measurement. One of my colleague, she is measuring Kanchana. So she is continuously measuring these trace gases to understand the ozone chemistry and its role of precursors at a suburban region. So we all know that pollution is confined to the urban areas or megacities. But what is the effect in the suburban region where large industries and other source emitters are not present? So, but we see that the background concentration of ozone and the other precursors, which are precursors basically which involved in the chemistry to produce the ozone concentration in the atmosphere. So these NOx, CO, SO2 along with the ozone we are measuring to understand the ozone chemistry, how ozone is produced in the atmosphere, because it doesn't come directly to the atmosphere. So it is produced through this photochemical reaction in presence of NO2, carbon monoxide, and other volatile organic compounds. So it has the ozone chemistry, the variability of ozone is strongly correlated with the air temperature. So when temperatures are more, the photochemical reaction is more active, so it has a positive correlation. The production of ozone is also be more, and subsequently when these NOx participate in the chemical reaction, precursors, when they participate in the chemical reaction, their abundance will be dropped, and thus the increase of ozone we measure. So we started ozone balloon launching experiments in the country in 2019 with help of with the support of our collaborating partners IAST and RC Nagpur, RC Jodhpur, along with our NRSC. So we started these balloon launching experiments to measure the vertical information of meteorological parameters and ozone concentration, to understand the atmospheric dynamics of these parameters, as well as this data is very useful and decisive to validate the satellite, our Indian satellite called INSAT 3D and 3DR. So this information will be very useful to validate the satellite based observations. So these are like we here this 3D map shows the launching site. So we the balloon roughly they are reaching at each location more than 32 kilometer, and then it due to its volume expansion due to its atmospheric pressure, the balloon get burst at a particular location that we call turnaround point, where the balloon get burst at altitude of 32 to 33 kilometer. Then it start descending and it falls somewhere. So this real time, we are able to see real-time information of these information along with these geographical information where this balloon is moving and heading towards, and fall when it descends, and where it is landing also real time we'll be able to understand. And the good thing is that we are almost retrieving the payload back, and we try to recondition it and use the for the next launch. But right now we are not doing that immediately. Once we do the all new sensor, then we do all conditioning again. All old sensors will be conditioned and will be reused again. So can just see how this ozone sonde is launched. We are launching from one university, agriculture university. So students also witnessing the launch. I'm just making fast forward. The balloon is filled with the helium gas, so it ascends very fast. Can lift off the balloon. The end of the balloon is the payload, which measures the atmospheric parameters as well as ozone concentration in the atmosphere. We get at each 5 meter, we get the data of these atmospheric parameters. So these are data looks. So we have validated the satellite retrieved profiles against our ozone sonde balloon measurements. So we have validated this ozone sonde profiles information against ozone monitoring instrument, which is launched by NASA, microwave limb sounder, and atmospheric infrared sounder. ERC METOP, it's a European satellite. So with these all sensors, the ozone sonde, the satellite observations are almost nearly matching with the ozone sonde profiles. And this information, whatever the uncertainties between satellite measurements, which can be compensated by the ozone sonde profiles, so that the retrieval of these parameters from the satellite can be improved much better. So that is how these measurements are very crucial and very important to calibrate this remote sensing space-based sensor to get the useful information. So we have all these sensors. So if you don't have a proper calibration, because the electronics of the all the instruments and due to the stability, everything will go over the time. So to overcome that problem, we need to calibrate at a regular interval of these all these sensors. So whatever I have shown so far, all the sensors are having calibrations, the calibration standard, which also imported from Nova USA. Those are all approved by the World Meteorological Organizations, meeting the climate quality. So these cylinders are being used to calibrate these CO2 analyzer, methane analyzer, N2O isotopic analyzer, CO2 isotopic analyzer. So all the analyzers are calibrated, whereas the FTR has its inbuilt internal calibration that is having a near infrared source and middle infrared source. With that we can calibrate while taking the measurements. Before taking the measurements, we calibrate that every day. Then we see whether all the optical components alignment is proper or not. Once we ensure that the alignment and the stability of the spectrometer, then we take the measurements of solar spectra. And we have, as I said, the second program is called National Information System for Climate and Environmental Studies. So under this, I hope everyone knows that this Global Climate Observing System (GCOS), which is working under the direction of World Meteorological Organization. So they have set the goals for the essential climate variables which have a significant impact on Earth's climate on this Earth's climate. So they have listed out in the atmosphere, ocean, terrestrial like biosphere and cryosphere like glaciers and all. So these are all parameters need to be monitored at each sphere like atmosphere, ocean, and cryosphere, terrestrial. So some of the parameters must and should be measured and understand. So to address the Earth's climate system. So for that, so national these NICES also start ISRO's initiative in 2011 to monitor these essential climate variables from atmosphere, ocean, terrestrial, and cryosphere. So it's a portal called Bhuvan, bhuvan.nrc.gov.in. So you can you can visit that site and can find this climate open data archive and climate and environment. So we are generating these all essential climate variables based on satellite data. So we are using the satellite data to estimate these essential climate variables and validating with the ground-based observation. Until unless we do validation, proper validation, we don't host our product in this portal. So to meet the climate quality, we are validating the satellite-based estimates of these products. Then we are validating and then we are hosting it on the Bhuvan portal, in which our NICES portal can be seen. These are all these are National Information System for Climate and Environmental Studies. Once you click this Open Data Archive to these, you will see this program and projects. This is the NICES portal. Once you click this NICES portal, so as I said, the objective of the NICES program is to generate, build, study the long-term essential climate variables, in short ECVs, over the Indian region, covering all the spheres from atmosphere, ocean, terrestrial, cryosphere of the planet Earth. So these are all the subgroups, as I said, the ocean, atmosphere. So under this, there is a product called troposphere ozone, which is a bad ozone we call because it has a significant impact on human health as well as agriculture. So thus, and it is also classified as one of the greenhouse gas, troposphere ozone, due to which, because it has a positive radiative effect, thus it is classified as a greenhouse gas. So this we are regularly from 2009 to till now, we are estimating this product and uploading it on the Bhuvan NICES portal, and this product is also validated. So further, this product is going to be more validated with our ozone sonde profiles, which I shown. That also gives profiles. So we will be validating more in near real time and hosting the data to the portal. So these are the publications and our research activities which have come in terms of papers in various international journals or reputed journals under like under ACR, atmosphere CO2 retrieval and monitoring of National Carbon Project. We have these many publications. Under NICES we have publications, and other R&D activities meeting this to address the climate system due to GHGs in the Indian subcontinent. So I would like to take this opportunity to acknowledge the previous leaders and current leader who really supported and supporting this these R&D activities at our NRSC ISRO Hyderabad. I sincerely thank my current director, Dr. Rajkumar, for his kind encouragement to carry out these activities. And they greatly acknowledge Dr. V.K. Dadwal, Director IAST, and former Director NRSC ISRO, and Project Director of National Carbon Project, for his kind support and continuous motivation guidance for progressing these advanced research activities in the country. And Dr. M.V.R. Shesai, outstanding scientist, Deputy Director of my area, Earth and Climate Science area of NRSC ISRO, and who is also Program Director of NICES, for his immense support and guidance for smooth execution of these works. I thank my head, J. Srinivasulu, Analytics and Modeling Division, for his encouragement. And I have a very helpful team, Dr. D.B. Mahalakshmi and Kanchana, who are equally supporting these research activities at NRSC ISRO. Contribute for their contribution and involvement. I thank them and thank you very much.
Thank you very much for this interesting session. Sir, from our audience side, we have a couple of questions. So would you like to take them?
Yes,
sure. Yes, sir. We have a question from Amasarao Arika ma'am. So she says that are course grid models the best for regional levels?
Yeah, as I said, the greenhouse gases are homogeneous in nature. So these greenhouse gases, if you take 1 degree grid, 1 degree by 1 degree model or 2 degree by 2 degree model will give the same output. So even for depending on the parameter that you select for the model simulation, so the resolution of the grid size it will have impact. So what I showed in the model simulation in my presentation with the ground data that we compared with our model simulation, it was for 2.8 degree by 2.8 degree latitudinal and longitudinal spacing. So for greenhouse gases, I hope it should work for even but more than that, like 5 degree by 5 degree, 10 degree by 10 degree, it won't give much realistic information.
Thank you, sir. Sir, next question is from Jayant N. Tripathi, sir. So he asked, does remote sensing observation from satellite give good CO2 and NO2 observation as compared to the instruments used in the institutes?
Yeah, actually
CO2, CO, and NO2 observations.
So these are actually, first we need to understand the CO2 and CH4 from the satellites are columnar measurements, whereas except FTIR, we have all ground-based analyzers are surface-based measurements. So whereas when we do the satellite retrieval comes with some assumptions and a priori information, whereas the ground-based information is an instant information which is driven by the principle. So compared to satellite, always the ground data is more accurate.
Thank you, sir. Sir, we have next question from Daniel, sir. So he asked, wouldn't the location of the instrument matter? Would that affect the measurements made, or are the local effects taken into care?
Yes, of course, the emissions of these greenhouse gases, abundance of these greenhouse gases is varies with the space. So the measurements at Hyderabad and measurements at Shadnagar are not same, because the local characteristics are different for Shadnagar and Hyderabad are different. So it will have a significant impact.
Thank you, sir. The next question is from MCR Kalapureddy, sir. So he asked, can methane monitor the FTIR?
Yes.
Okay. Then we have another question from Gayatri ma'am. So she asked, how is the long-term changes in annual cycle of CO2 and methane affected with the simulation wet pollution?
Wet pollution.
Huh.
Yeah, actually the concentrations in the atmosphere, when we report, we have to report in dry mole fraction, where we have to remove the effects of water vapor. The water vapor have effect on each species in the atmosphere, because at each absorption band, equally the influence of water vapor is equally contributed. So when we retrieve the concentration of a particular species, we should take care of the influence of water vapor, then estimate the concentration. So for ground-based measurements, except FTIR, what we do, we parallelly measure water vapor concentrations. Then we remove the water vapor concentration from the atmospheric CO2 measurements. Whereas FTIR, the effect of spectral band by the water vapor that we remove, then we estimate the concentration. So in short, the water vapor influence is significant over these greenhouse gases. So when we report, we have to remove these greenhouse gases. We have to remove the water vapor influence and estimate the concentrations. So if we, without removing the water vapor influence, your model simulation will not give properly.
Thank you, sir. Sir, next question is from Praveen, sir. So he asked, how feasible are drone-based measurements?
Yeah, it's very much feasible, but we need to see the payload weight.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir. So these were the questions from the participants. Sir, we also thank you for your interesting and informative session. You extended this FDP program by adding an important topic about greenhouse gas measurement. And thank you for sharing your work in detail with the interesting findings in between with the graphs and charts too. There were many new things that we, the participants, got from this lecture. Also, sir, we applaud for your contribution in this field and extend our heartiest gratitude for your acceptance to take this session. Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mahesh.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mahesh. Yeah, thank you.
Sir. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Yes.
Now for the audience, we have a feedback form for the mental health yoga session that was conducted today morning. So I'm sharing its link in the chat box. I request all the participants to kindly fill it and look at it once. So that is for the participants. So we'll wait for 5 to 10 minutes for the participants to see that and fill it up. And after that, there is a time for a long break, and this web program will resume tomorrow at 10 a.m.
Yeah, Jayati, that link for
I shared, sir.
you shared. Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir, I shared. So I'm waiting for the participants to fill that link.
Thank
So that is a feedback form that you can go through and fill.
Jyoti, the feedback form is not being opened.
No, sir, I just opened it and checked it. Sir, when you click on this link, I will send the link again. There is a section of comments where you can give your comment.
The link is http://time.cc.
Sir, I'm talking about this link, www